Hi everyone, welcome to the Deep Psychology Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Edwards, and today we are wrapping up this November series on intimate relationships. Welcome to the Deep Psychology Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Edwards, author, coach, and podcaster. We cover deep insights into your psychology, helping you grow in psyche and spirit. Make sure to subscribe to Deep Psychology on Spotify or Apple to stay up to date. You can also visit the website deep-psychology.com, visited by tens of thousands of people every month for lots of free resources. If you want to go deeper with this work, you might like to do coaching with me, head to the website for more details. It's time for today's episode. So if you've not listened to the other episodes in this series, I really recommend you go back and listen to them. There's 4, totaling almost 2 hours of material in total. And in my opinion, just really covering a lot of the essential principles of intimate relationships that no one really talks about. You know, unless you go hunting for this information yourself, you find a good therapist, you find a good coach, you do the research on the internet, you're not going to find this stuff, but this is really what you need to build a high quality relationship. And this information is just the beginning. You know, it's fine for me to sit here and talk about these principles and for you to listen to them, but the practice is where it is most challenging to implement, but that's where you're really going to see change and growth. Okay? So today what we're going to be doing is just summarising this month, because there's been a lot of material and I just want to kind of condense it all down and give you a nice sort of take-home episode just to summarise what we've done. So first of all, I just want to say that I hope you're understanding the necessity of not running away from some of the harsh realities of intimate relationships. You know, in this month, I've been presenting ideas that maybe sound a bit negative or a bit kind of depressing in certain ways, but I would propose to you that if that's how they seem, it's because you've maybe been looking at them with rose-tinted glasses a little bit, and you've been relying on sources or you've been relying on popular culture to tell you what a relationship is really about. And what we're really doing is we're looking at a relationship as it is, an intimate relationship as it is. You know, what does it mean to be an intimate relationship with someone? What does it mean to live with someone? What does it mean to be in love with someone? What does it mean to get married? And all of these things. Like, on the ground, what does it actually look like? Because we can imagine, oh, well, when we get married, that's about our wedding day. And that would just be, oh my word, that would just be a really terrible way to look at it. You know, for example, this is just an example. You could do this with pretty much everything we've spoken about, but with this example, you know, talking about marriage, the wedding day might be an amazing event. It might be it might be a huge milestone in your life. It might be a life-defining moment. It might be one of the great memories that you'll have. But ultimately, it's just one day or 2 days. And the marriage is not the wedding day. The wedding day is just the beginning. And the marriage is everything that comes after. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. So this is what I mean when you're not looking at the realities of a relationship. You're sort of reducing things down to a certain moment or a certain day, and I really encourage you not to do that. I really encourage you to face these difficult truths that we've covered this month, and not to bury your head in the sand, because you're going to be facing them anyway. You are going to be arguing with your partner. There is going to be tension. You are going to be in this furnace. You are being mirrored all the time by your partner. The relationship is all the time a reflection of both of your psychologies and how you operate together. So you can either bury your head in the sand because you don't like to hear this stuff and you want to think that it's all about finding Prince Charming and getting married and it's happily forever after, when it's not. or you can face up to the reality of your intimate relationship and take responsibility. And that's what I would really encourage you to do. And if you're listening this far, I would suggest that you're understanding the necessity of it, so you're doing well. The way I look at it is that anything that you do not work through in your current relationship, you're basically just putting it on standby. Like, for example, if you don't learn not to lose your temper now, it will either poison the rest of your relationship in quite fundamental ways, or you'll end up breaking up with your current partner and you'll go to the next partner, and again, you're going to notice this problem of, oh, I'm losing my temper here and I don't know what to do. And I can, you're just facing the same problem over and over again. I think this is pretty much true in life as well. Our problems are sort of repetitive and they don't go away until we really solve them. In your relationship, it's so true. And this applies like to so many different skills that I can't possibly number now, but just this is why I want to face the reality of it. If you're ready, you're going to face it now, and you're never going to have to worry about it again. Like, if you truly learn how to not lose your temper, that is a skill that will become inbuilt, and you'll never have to learn it again. And you're going to notice the amazing payoffs of that. And if you don't, you're going to be postponing it forever, and you're going to be living the consequences of losing your temper all the time. The reality of intimate relationship is usually a lot less sexy than we imagine it to be. An intimate relationship sounds like love and deep conversations and cuddles and trips to the countryside and living together and designing a house together and having children. I mean, and that stuff does happen, but a lot of it is really quite mundane. It's sort of like having a friendship. Is being with your best friend always like exhilarating and like getting high? And no, it's not. There's arguments, there's fallouts, there's mundane times, there's times where you're fed up with each other, there's times where you don't speak, there's times where you're wondering if the friendship is going to go on any longer. All of this stuff is happening. Surely you have all your great times, but you're in a relationship with somebody. I mean, what do you expect? In intimate relationships, this is just amplified so much for all the different reasons we've spoken about this month. But all our ideas about intimate relationships are typically very like romanticized, and I just want you to be very sober and to realize that the actual reality is much more mundane, and that's not a bad thing. That's just the reality of it. Remember, we're trying to look at things as they are here. We're not trying to fantasize or idealize things or generate things artificially. There are just unsavory aspects to being in an intimate relationship with someone. That's just how it is. The two key principles of being in an intimate relationship, and these are really for you, they're not for your partner. It'd be great if your partner could adopt them as well, but you cannot make your partner adopt them. And those are responsibility and self-awareness. I think these are like the two key principles of living a high-quality intimate relationship: is responsibility and self-awareness. And each person in the relationship has to take it upon themselves to adopt these principles themselves. Otherwise, because you neither can force the other partner to do it. As soon as you tell the partner to adopt responsibility and self-awareness, you yourself are probably not doing that because you're looking for them to do something. You're not taking the responsibility for it. And so we've spoken about responsibility and self-awareness, but what this really does is it puts the relationship in your control. And I don't mean in a controlling way. I mean, it puts the dynamic in your control. If you have absolute responsibility for your actions, speech, behavior, and you have full self-awareness of your emotional reactions, of how you're speaking, of what it's like to be around you, of your own inner world, you're you've really got like the clay of the relationship is in your hands now. It's not being, you're not giving away that responsibility and that power to the other person or to some arbitrary external forces or even the circumstances of your life. You are taking responsibility. There are 3 phases in intimate relationships. There's actually more, but I'm just simplifying it down for you. There's romantic infatuation, which, as we spoke about earlier in the month, is the first phase, and it's the one we typically equate intimate relationships with, which is extremely unfortunate. And if you've been doing this, you're going to notice the dysfunction that it creates. So knowing that it's just the first phase is really good. Then it's intimacy. Romantic infatuation and then intimacy. Intimacy looks like creating sort of a stable structure. Maybe you live together, maybe you have children, maybe you get married, maybe you have joint possessions, maybe you have bank accounts, you have joint responsibilities, and all the rest of it. So it's like you're actually a couple now, you're like a stable couple. That's the intimate stage. And what people often think is that there's just going to be an upward trajectory in terms of like love and sex and good feelings, but actually in the intimacy stage, it tends to go back the way, because romantic infatuation is like an artificial high, essentially. And in the intimacy stage, you're really sort of consolidating and you're really getting to know the other person as they are. And this might feel like a regression. Once you go into intimacy and all the romantic infatuation disappears, you might think that you're regressing as a couple, but you might have regressed in certain ways. I can certainly give you that one, but the actual structure itself is not a regression. It's actually an advance. It just feels like a regression because it's not so flashy, and it's not so kind of, it's not very Hollywood, shall we say. And then there's first love. So first love is sort of what I'm trying to guide you towards here. And it might sound a bit strange. What does first love mean? It's sort of like a new form of falling in love. It's falling in love with the person as they are, because you know them as they are, and you know all their downsides, and you know all their weaknesses, and you know all their, everything they've been through and the things that have happened to them. You actually know who they are, probably better than most people. And you fall in love with that. You don't fall in love with the person you've known for 2 weeks. And during romantic infatuation, when you're in first love, you've gone beyond the intimacy, and you've gone beyond just like the structure and sort of the mundane routine of intimate relationships, and you're actually sort of taking full responsibility for what is happening, and you're deliberately generating love as like your go-to, as your baseline approach to the other person. You're taking responsibility for your speech, your emotions, your actions, and you're deliberately trying to sort of continually remain in a space where you're operating from a stable space, and you're trying to overcome things like unconscious reactions and arguments and conflict, unnecessary conflict, and you're trying to sort of consciously work together. So what I've sort of, again, first love, the whole idea of first love is quite a big thing to cover. But my basic point here with the stages is that romantic infatuation is the first one. And then building like a sort of stable, intimate relationship, and it's not so flashy, is the second stage. And then there's more beyond that. And that the good stuff lies on the other side of ordinary intimacy that most of the couples and marriages that you know are currently in. The good stuff lies on the other side. It doesn't lie in going back to romantic infatuation. You cannot go back there anyway, but that is not where the good stuff lies. The good stuff lies beyond it, when you've used the relationship as a furnace, you've used it skillfully, and you've developed self-control, and you've down-regulated your negative responses to such an extent that you're basically now operating in a different sphere with your partner. You're no longer in the unconscious slumber of ordinary intimacy, having like petty arguments and shouting and blaming each other and all of this stuff. You've gone beyond that and you've found first love on the other side. You truly are loving the other person as they are, and you've learned that you must take responsibility, you must be fully self-aware, and that if you do that, the chances of there being love in the relationship is a lot higher. It's not going back to romantic infatuation that creates the love. It is conscious relating and conscious communication and taking full responsibility for speech, emotions, actions, and so on. And just to remind you before we round up this episode is that relationship is a furnace. Like, I want you to really remember that. If you're ever having like a difficult moment in your intimate relationship, and there will be many difficult moments over the years, that it's not necessarily because of a fault on your part, although I would say that there's probably things you can do that would lessen the likelihood of having difficult moments so often. But regardless of how much emotional awareness you have and how much responsibility you take and how down-regulated you are, how self-regulated you are, it's still going to be difficult. It's still a furnace. You can think of it like a relational furnace, a psychological furnace. And you either rise to the challenge and you move forward together into first love, or you stay in the soup of ordinary intimacy where most couples remain, especially from our sort of parents' generation. And, you know, you're just stuck in the ordinary couple dynamics that most people are. You know, that's the choice you have. And I suspect if you're listening to this episode, you want more from your relationship. Otherwise, you wouldn't have listened to it. So know that your relationship is a furnace, and the tools that we have covered this month is how you basically use this ore you have, which is your psychology, your being, your presence, your emotional style, and how to really refine that in this furnace so that you get to a beautiful place together. So I hope you've really enjoyed this series this month. It's a topic that is absolutely fascinating to me. And I'm going to be honest with you, even though I can talk about these things, it's really difficult to implement it. I'm getting better and better over time. And the more I do this work, the more I realise that I have to take 100% responsibility for the relationship. I cannot expect my partner to do anything. And that when I do that, actually the whole dynamic improves. However, it's very challenging, but it should be challenging because this is like the you know, if you can master your intimate relationship, you are going to master a lot of your other relationship, because your intimate relationship is like the strongest one, the most the one that is most susceptible to sort of psychological weaknesses and bad habits and so on. So if you can master this, you're going to notice huge changes in other areas of your life, in other relationships. So use this as like a huge growth opportunity. All right, everyone, I will be back in December for my special Christmas series. So make sure to tune in next Wednesday for that. And meanwhile, if you'd like to do coaching with me, you can get a free discovery call. Just head to deep-psychology.com to book that with me. Thank you very much, and I will see you very soon on the Deep Psychology podcast. Take care.